Hey boys and girls, this is Mrs. Stone and this is your grammar lesson for the week. We're combining two lessons this week because it's not a hard lesson. I think it's just going to save us some time. So we are doing lessons 27 and 28 this week, and we are still in with adjectives, but this time we are comparing adjectives. Now this is where it's very important to remember linking verbs. Remember, linking verbs are the words like are, is, was, were, all of those words. And it's not a helping verb because it's not helping a main verb. A linking verb links something from the predicate part of the sentence, the end part of the sentence, to the subject of the sentence, which is in the beginning. So let's take an example and see what they say. It says adjectives can compare people, places, and things. Adjectives that compare tell how things are different from each other. So the two examples that they give you are lions are stronger than leopards. They are comparing lions to leopards. Now the word stronger is being linked back to lions by that little verb are. So it is a linking verb. So they're saying that lions are stronger than leopards. Now the important part to remember is I am only comparing two things here. So when you compare only two people, places, or thing, you're going to use an ER. The next sentence says lions are the strongest big cat. Strongest is being linked back to lions, which is the subject of your sentence, and it's comparing lions to all the other cats in the world. So we're talking about panthers and leopards and tigers and whatever other big cat there is out there. So there's more than two. So you're going to use EST. So below that, it just gives you the rules. When you're comparing two people, places, or things, then you're going to use ER. When you're comparing more than two, then you're going to use EST. So sometimes the spelling of an adjective changes when ER, EST is added. We went over these exact same rules when we talked about adding ED, so you shouldn't have any problems with this. Instead of adding ED, you're just going to be adding ER or EST. So you still have the drop the silent E, okay, add ER. You still have the change the Y to an I, add ER or EST. And then if you have a short vowel followed by a consonant, you're going to double that consonant and then add ER or EST. So you can refer back to these rules, but these are rules that we talked about, the exact same rules we talked about when we talked about adding ED to a word. So let's take a look at your workbook page, practice set A. So in practice set A, they want you to change 1 through 5, okay, and compare two things. So in column A, you're only going to add ER. In column B, they want you to compare more than two things. And so they want you to add EST to the word. Now, it is very important that you spell it correctly. Spelling is going to count in this because they've given you specific rules. So in number 1, they have said the word is cold. So they want you to compare two things. And so basically what they're saying is they want you to add an ER and make it colder. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to go through numbers 1 through 10. It's not going to be very hard, but you need to go back and refer to those rules that are on the little lesson box. So go through 2 through 10. Remember, all of column A is ER, all of column B are EST. So go ahead and do those. Come back when you're ready. Okay, now that you are back, let's go through number 2. You're just simply adding an ER just like you did in cold. You're going to say wild, wilder. Number 3, you're going to say scarcer. Now, technically, you dropped that silent E and you added an ER. Okay, so ER together makes the sound. If we're just saying we're adding the R, then you're only really adding the R sound. You're not adding the sound. So you're dropping the silent E and you're adding an ER. On number 4, this is that rule where you have to change the Y to an I and add ER, tinier. And then on number 5 is the double consonant rule. You have a short vowel, O, ah, followed by a one consonant, T. So you're going to double the T and add ER. Okay, number 6. Remember column B, you're adding EST. You're comparing two or more things to each other. So in number 6, you should have put warmest, straight spelling, no tricks. Number 9, okay, technically you're dropping, or number 7, I'm sorry. Technically you're dropping the silent E and adding EST. Number 8, you're doing the exact same thing. You're dropping the silent E and you're adding EST. Now, number 9, you're going to change the whole Y to an I and add EST. And then the last one, it is a short vowel, I, followed by one consonant. So you're going to double the N and add EST. Pretty straightforward. You should know these rules from when we did adding ED. All right, now that we're done with lesson 27, I want you to flip over and find lesson 28. And we're still talking about using adjectives to compare things. But instead of adding ER or EST, we're going to use the words more and most. And the reason why you do this is because there's just some words that you cannot add ER or EST. And usually those are words that are over 2 or more syllables long. Definitely 3 syllables. 2, there's some that you can add them to and some that you cannot. But let's talk about what a syllable is. Remember, a syllable is how many parts a word can be divided into. So if I said the word beautiful, we say beautiful. Okay, I clap 3 times, I hear 3 syllables. So in that case, I would have to add the word more or most to the beginning of the word beautiful, because I wouldn't say beautifuler or beautifulest. Okay, you have to say more or most. Now, it says the word more or most are often needed when comparing adjectives of 2 or more syllables. I want you to say it says often, not always, often. Use more with adjectives when comparing 2 people, places, or things. Use most with adjectives when comparing more than 2 people, places, or things. Same rule applies with ER and EST, except for you're using more and most this time because the word is too long for you to add an ER or an EST. Now, if you do use the words more and most, you do not add ER or EST to the adjective. That's why you used more or most in the first place, is because it didn't make any sense to leave it off. So let's look at the example that they've given you. Okay, the correct example is Jean is more patient than Debbie. Incorrect would be Jean is more patienter than Debbie. It just doesn't sound right. Sometimes Sam can get you kind of thrown off because you sit there and you think, oh, it might be right. Okay, but then sometimes it's pretty obvious that it's not going to work. So now what I want you to do is I want you to look at practice set A. Okay. On practice set A, in column A, you are comparing 2 things. So when you compare 2 things, and if the words have 2 or more syllables, you're not going to add an ER this time. You're going to put the word more in front of it. Column B, you're comparing 2 or more things. So instead of using EST on the end, you're probably going to add the word most to the beginning. Let's take a look at number 1. Okay. And it says honest. Honest is 2 syllables. So you don't say honester. So you're going to say more honest. Number 2 is active. You're not going to say activer. You're going to say more active. All right, now that we've got that side, let's go over to the other side and look at that. Okay, generous. That is 3 syllables. So we definitely want to use the word most. So most generous. So if I were to say Cynthia is the most generous girl in our class, then that means that she's being compared to all the girls in the class, and there are more than 2. Number 7, loyal. Okay, you don't want to say loyaler or loyalist. Okay, a loyalist is actually a person, but in this case, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about adjectives that compare. So in that case, it's going to be most loyal. Okay, Bob is the most loyal friend of them all. Okay, that's comparing more. So what I want you to do is I want you to do the other 6 on this page. When you're done, I want you to come back and we're going to check it to make sure it's right. Okay, now that you're back, I look at number 3 and I immediately say complexer is not a word. So it has two syllables, complex. So I definitely know that I need to add the word more. So it's a more, this problem is more complex than that problem. So I'm comparing two things. Okay, number 4, it says reasonable. So I don't want to say reasonabler, all right? I am going to say more reasonable. Okay, that answer is more reasonable than this answer. And on number 5, I don't want to say famouser. I'm going to say more famous. All right. On the other column where I'm comparing two or more things, people, places, or things, I'm going to look at 8. I'm going to say, we don't say difficultest. Ooh, I can't even say that. Difficultest. All right. We are going to say most difficult. So this problem is the most difficult problem on the page. So I have a whole bunch of other problems, more than 2, so I have to use the word most. On number 9, okay, I don't say basicest, all right, I'm going to say most basic. Water is one of our most basic needs out of all of them. Okay, I'm comparing water to air to food to shelter to dirt to rocks, whatever. Okay, it's comparing more than two things. And the last one, independent. I don't want to say independentist. Wow, that's even hard to say. Okay, I'm going to say the most independent. So I say, Larry is the most independent um, pickle and VeggieTales. I don't know. He's a cucumber, I guess he is. Okay, so you just need to remember that I'm comparing more than two things, but because independent has obviously more than two syllables, I have got to use the word most. So I hope you understand this. I think it's fairly easy. Most things just sound right. But when you're spelling, remember the same rules we use with ED, and remember that if the word is two or more syllables, more than likely you are going to use more and most when you're comparing. So I hope you have a great rest of your day, and hopefully we're going to play a game on this tomorrow during reading group. If I can find a really good one, we will do that. And you go back and use some of the other adjectives that we've talked about, like demonstrative and other things like that. So have a great rest of your day, and I will see you on Tuesday.